asking from the angle of the Ghana FA, what would you say are the high points?
Well, let's take every aspect of the game into consideration and start by saying that for the first time in the history of Ghana, we were able to hold the National Under-15 Championship. That culminated in some players being selected for the next Under-17 team. That is a major step. As far as youth football is concerned also, took some major decisions to help stem the problem of FIFA Connect registration that has affected the start of many colds competitions right across the country. So on that front, you say that a lot of progress was made on that front. Still on youth front, we returned to the World Cup and finished decently at the tournament, and that is also one thing we'll say would be another high point. In women's football, we have instituted the Women's FA Cup. We are among the few, if not the only African country that plays a Women's FA Cup apart from the league. We have sponsorship for the league too as well, and our youth teams are also on their way to qualifying for the World Cup, having been impressive in the qualifiers. So on that front too, that is what I would say. On the senior national team itself, I'd say that would be perhaps the sticking point for us. There are positives in certain areas, and some disappointments in certain areas. I would consider our failure to qualify for the World Cup as a major flaw. I would also consider an inability to be among the final team at the African Cup of Nations also as a disappointment. But we would also want to highlight the fact that we won the WAFU championship in this country, and it could also count as the highlight. As far as the league is concerned, a very, very successful league organized in a successful manner with a worthy champion elected, or with a worthy champion named. And if you consider that aspect, I would say that we've been successful in that area. That is not to say that there are no problems within the system. There are problems, but the organization of it, the champion that won the competition, are all worthy winners. And on the front of administration, we have just some few weeks ago gone into a brainstorming session to examine the way we do things and how we can improve things. The conclusions that came on from that summit showed that there are lots of people in this country with the acumen and know how to be able to steer the affairs of the game in the right direction. And I'll consider that summit to also as a positive. So we have lots of positives and some negatives too as well. Well, it's an attempt to help, speed or accelerate the development of the game in the country. But as to whether Congress will approve it or not, I won't be able to say here. If I say that, I would be lying, because I would not be the ones to vote on the matter. Those who have the right to vote on the matter would decide. However, let me assure you that we have lobbied a lot of people to be able to carry through some of these things we want to do. It's important that when you make these lofty ideas, you explain to the members before they get to the Congress grounds. Otherwise, you get a situation where one man will come and muddy the whole water for another reason. So it is important that we engage with the clubs, and it is the process that we are taking our clubs through, and hope that when the time comes to vote on the matter, they will vote in favor of it. The biggest challenge 2017 was finance. Yes, and so if it still is, we must highlight it. It's finance. If we are able to get the desired funds to be able to prosecute the programs that we've been mandated to do, would be able to prosecute them, like we saw with the WAFU. The WAFU was not organized from Mars. It was organized here. And every Ghanaian was able to testify that this was a good and well-organized competition. If we have the same financial capacity, we'll perhaps even be able to do better.
Was the lack of finance?
It could be part of the reasons. It could be...
What is the main reason?
The main reason was that when we started this World Cup qualifying campaign, I don't think the minister who was in charge had an idea of what it takes for a country to qualify for the World Cup. You won't be in the middle of the qualifying of a World Cup campaign for your minister to say you perhaps or you bribe people to be able to qualify for the World Cup. It will not be in the middle of the World Cup qualifying campaign that you call your players unpatriotic. It will not be in the middle of the World Cup campaign or at the start of a World Cup campaign that you call players into a meeting when they barely had 6 hours to go into a match at midnight to hold a meeting with them over bonuses. These were some of the things that hurt us. He wasn't on good terms with the Football Association. And in previous times, when we had qualified for the World Cup, whichever party was in power cooperated with the FA, worked with the FA to ensure that we secured qualification. But this minister didn't look like he wanted to cooperate with the FA, and that spelled our death knell. Now, it will take us redoubling of our efforts. Our efforts now would not be enough. Because, let me explain, the doubling of our efforts will not be enough because the countries that will go to the World Cup at this time will have a higher ranking on the FIFA standings than us. So we are no longer going to be seeded. If we are not seeded, what does it mean? Qualifying will be difficult. So these are some of the things we need to do. Redouble our efforts, build good relationships with those we serve under the ministry, and also let the ministry understand that if we want to qualify for the World Cup, it's a very, very expensive venture. You won't say that your players don't deserve to sit in the first class when all their colleagues from wherever it is, even from countries that are poorer, are able to get chartered flights to come here. We should be able to do the same and do better for our players.
I asked a specific question. What are your efforts that you have to double?
I said, we need to work closely with the ministry to be able to qualify for the World Cup. We need to be on the same page. Well, you see, this position is an ignorant view. The reason why I say it's an ignorant view is that in previous times, before we qualified for the World Cup, we did things in a certain way that did not help Ghana to qualify, despite the presence of top players, Abedi Peloton, Yeboah and the rest. It didn't help us. Then we turned the corner and did it in another way. That helped us to qualify for the World Cup. Why do we reinvent the wheel?
You mentioned things, you did things in a different way. What were the things they were doing that didn't qualify them? And what were the things you turned to a different corner and it helped?
One, we respected the players. We revered the players.
The players were not respected.
I think that in this qualifiers, the players were demonized.
I mean, in previous Black Stars, let's say
I'll cite examples to you. In some previous World Cups, players will pay by themselves to come to play for the country with the promise that they will be paid back. They were never paid back.
I mean, I know of only one, when Sam Johnson and co had to pay Comm.
It's many. That is the only one you know. When I was practicing as a journalist, it was a common practice. If you ask people like Yao Preko or Kestina Himfo and Co, in their era, it was common practice. That is why people did not qualify. When you go on the international stage and you learn what the best countries did, you apply it. And that was what we did in 2006 and worked. 2010, it worked. 2014, it worked to some extent. When we decided that despite all the promises that were made to the players, it was not heeded. That was when the problem started. So it tells you one thing. If you know, you work with the players, you must give them respect. If you don't respect them, you don't respect their opinions, and you just think they are footballers or riffraffs, it is not going to work. Football has risen from that era. Today, footballers are treated like top-class entertainers. In countries, I remember there was a Ghanaian player who was about to board a flight to Ghana to play for the Black Stars. His team came to see him off at the airport. He was in business class. His club said, we have spent, I won't mention the name, in that the club said it had spent in excess of £20 million on him to buy him. Why would it take a journey from London to Accra for you to put him in business class? They wanted first class. They paid for it. That is how you value your players. Yes, our country is poor, but if we want to qualify for the World Cup and be amongst the table of men, we must be able to be ready to pay for all of those things that come with it. Well, when the success, how many times having people blame the FA for one reason or the other? Even when a player fails to kick the ball into, even if the player fails to kick the ball into the net, it's the fault of the GFA chairman. It's unacceptable. So those areas are not areas you can hold the FA accountable for it. You know, it's also not the fact that we are not above criticism. Yes, criticize us, but some of the criticism are completely out of place. Some, you know, not backed by the fact that they are seeking the truth or wanting to get to the bottom of the matter or be educated on the matter. They want to scuttle the boat. When Asamoah scores the goal, would the FA be praised for that success? The player will get the glory.
When the Asamoah scores a goal and Ghana qualifies to the next stage, the FA has done the right thing for Ghana to qualify to the next stage.
And didn't you? It's not true, Muftau.
That is the case.
It's not true.
No. So
didn't you hear politicians saying we qualified to the World Cup too, this party qualified to the World Cup too, and this one won? Didn't you hear it?
No, those things are political talks.
And yes, are they not taking credit?
No, but
are they not? Everybody.
We all know
if the media contributed, it has to take credit. If the government contributed, it has to take its credit. If the FA contributed, it has to take its credit. If the players and the coaches contributed, they have to take credit. So, and it's not a crime.
So why is the FA not accepting blame for our failure to qualify for the World Cup?
Now, where did we go wrong? If you say it's not accepting blame, if there are issues we have done that are wrong, of course we'll own up to it. But in this matter, would you say that in the preparation of the team, the FA didn't prepare the team? If there were matters beyond us, like paying players when they should be paid and the rest, and stuff like that, that is beyond us.
Would the FA want to be independent?
It would be the most ideal thing. The current climate that we are in, you send budgets to government that owns the national team. People think you are stealing money or you are trying to fleece the state of some money. At least if it gets to a point where you are independent, that one, no one can question your motives.
What about if the government of today decides to say that we don't want to have a national team again?
No, it's the responsibility of the FA to put up a team. If the government says so, government of Ghana is not affiliated to FIFA, unfortunately.
That we all know.
Ghana.
But the team, is, just like you mentioned, the national team is for the state.
Yes, the national team is for the state.
But
the reason,
it is the duty of the FA to raise a national team.
reason being that the state funds it. But if we are independent and we get funding to be able to run our affairs, we will behave like what the other parts of the world do.
The Germans,
Germans, South Africans, England, and it's what they do.
What do you make of CRPS?
It's been good. So far the results have been good. Don't you think so? Yes, I'm asking you, don't you think so? Based on the results he's had so far, if you just oppose it on percentages, you say he has done excellently well. I would not be tempted into comparing coaches to coaches. It is not a good thing to do. I won't compare you to another journalist and rate you higher. It would be unfair. 2018, we are qualifying for 2 World Cups. Women's under 20 and women's under 17. We'll start some of the qualifiers for under 20, under 17 for men's, and then we'll ensure that we qualify for the 2019 African Cup of Nations. Most importantly, Ghana will be hosting the African Women's Championship, and we need to put up a good show, perhaps to win the African Cup of Nations for women for the first time. That would be the most ideal thing for us.
What about on domestic football?
On domestic football, we want to raise the standards, and the standards will rise. We also need the support of the media and the clubs. If we put our houses in order, we will be able to do a lot of strides. We expect Kotoko and Adriana to do well in Africa. We are not saying that they win it, but we expect them to reach the money zone. Of course, we are going to support them like we've done with other teams in the past. I cannot guarantee you that. We are working assiduously towards it. The market is very, very volatile. Ghana is not in a perfect economic situation as at the moment. You would see that the prices for oil and gold and cocoa, our key export commodities, have fallen over the past few years. And that has had a trickle-down effect on what companies can do. So it's made the market very, very tight. That is also not to say that we also as a federation and as clubs have not done our bit. When we get sponsors, we should put in measures that will promote their sponsorship, that will make their sponsorship worthwhile. And if it is, we'll have bigger sponsorships. Yes, we have started implementing the club licensing system. It's a major concern for us. Our television sponsors, Start Times, will be touring the venues to ensure that they meet some standards before the start of the season. We also want to ensure that when standards are set, they are met. It's important that we don't collapse the clubs. We don't say that because of club licensing system, if just 4 teams, by the dint of the fact that they are based in Accra or Kumasi, where the state has built stadiums, they are able to comply with it. What about the other parts of the country? Are we saying that we are cutting them off? We should not cut them off. It is our opinion that we should hold their hands. Let's help them, let's support them, let's teach them, and let them come to the party. It's not an easy decision, but slowly we'll get it right. We had wanted to start
in Upper West, Upper East.
Yes, we had expected, or we had wanted to start before 31st December. But travels and the schedules of Start Times have made it impossible for us to reach a date where at least the ground will be commissioned for the start of work. So we are on it. We hope that this thing can be resolved before the end of the year.
Any specific period in 2018 that you believe that we might even see at least one pitch in the country from Start Times?
By March, April, I'm sure.
How many?
We want to start with 2 first, but it depends on their pockets. If they've got enough money to be able to deliver that, that is where we want to start.